Good morning, Ed. Thanks for joining me today. How are things going for you?
Hi, Andrew. No, it's a pleasure to be sitting with you again, and things are going pretty good. I'm down in Puerto Rico at this time. It's planting season for us here, and the season's behaving a little bit like it did this spring up in the Midwest. Being wet and getting delayed, and so we're here to kind of work through that and work with Mother Nature to get our crop in the ground here.
Well, we've got a little bit more experience now after this past season up here, so you should be a little bit better equipped for what you have going on down there.
Well, wet is wet, and it doesn't matter where you are in the globe, and you got to face these challenges, and it looking like more often than not. And so, yeah, we're getting more and more experience, needless to say, on how to deal with wet and late seasons.
Right. Well, it always leads to something interesting, and at the end of the day, we're always learning something new every season. But in
Yeah.
terms of kind of getting some more education on certain things, one thing that's exciting is what we've started is the Discovery Farm up in Minnesota. You want to give us a little background on that?
Yeah, the Discovery Farm is something that I've wanted to do for a little while now, and especially with our interest in cover crops and regenerative agriculture that's been sparked within the last year, is it's extremely important now to have that where we can control some land internally to develop farming practices on long term, so we can actually see what the overall result is. And being that we're going down the regenerative agriculture path with our seed sales and unconventional corn, it's best that we get a firsthand look at regenerative ag as deep as we can. And so that's why we decided to rent some land and have our own farm, and we'll call it the Discovery Farm because it's we want to learn something new every day and try the wacky stuff that other people may be afraid to do, and basically implement ideas we get from our customers and see what happens. So a lot of the work that happens on regenerative ag is elsewhere from everybody, and the more these farms and people like us do this work, the broader the knowledge base to leverage
Right.
for everybody who's interested in regenerative agriculture.
So, where is the farm located?
It's south of Rhode Island, Minnesota, which would be about uh, you know 10 miles from our Danube facility, roughly. Maybe 12, depending upon as a crow flies how you get there.
Right.
But yeah, so I mean, it's close. It's in Little County, highly productive farm, heavy soils, northern climate. So we're going to have a little bit different look on when we plant and what happens. And this all happened in the fall after the crop came off about mid-October. I went ahead and no-till planted in some cereal rye on 40 acres, and then I planted in cereal rye plus hairy vetch plus lentils on another portion. And I planted these crops. Keith Burns at Green Cover. I asked him and his brother Brian for some recommendations how to get started, and they gave me a few selections to pick from, and those were the two that I picked to get started. I wanted to be quite basic, based on everything that I've learned from those gentlemen and from some other people I've been visiting with that have experience with cover crops. And that leaves us roughly another 70 acres of corn and soybean rotation to play in without cover crops. We can do the actual comparisons
Right.
on this farm for, starting 2025.
So we will have a portion of the field with no cover, a portion of the field with cover, and a portion of both of those sides of the field that was previously soy and previously corn.
Correct. Correct.
So a
158
wide
acres.
spectrum of things to start with when we get corn in the ground next year for where we're putting our plots, right?
Yep. So I have, at least four different options. Well, actually, it's eight different ways to look at our testing next year. It's this project came about kind of fast and furious, and so it took me about a week to think through looking at the farm layout, how we should attack it without still having solid concrete ideas what we were going to do. But I figured at least if I can divide it up into quadrants and then by crop, that gives us a lot of options. So roughly we can plant you know 20-acre blocks, let's say, on the farm.
Outside of the, in and out of crops, or in bean stubble or corn from the previous year, are there other ideas you have for different testing that you'll run through on that farm, in terms of treatments or biology or anything like that?
So we're going to try and mix and match a lot of different ideas together. It'll be from seed treatments, biology applications. All this is going to be focused towards regenerative agriculture. So, we'll be comparing chemistry to biology, of course, in different situations, as well as naked seed, and then with biology applied during the growing season at different points based on recommendations from or ideas that we get from our customers on when they apply and what's convenient. We'll also be trying to establish cover crops during the growing season on the corn crop as well. We'll be doing some skip row work, 2 rows, skip a row, 2 rows, skip a row, and see how that works with cover crops planted in between. We have some customers who've done that with some success, and we want to see if we can document it as well. And so we can start to publish what varieties work and
Right.
what way to give guys ideas. That's what this is all about. And because we just want to know. And we'll also be playing with nitrogen rates. Are we going to pick up enough nitrogen from the cover crops that we plant? Or can we cycle enough nitrogen that's in our soil, given the organic matter it's at, to raise a crop with less application of synthetic nitrogen? So there's a lot going on here. And like I say, we just got to figure out what the protocols are, get them set up so we can start planning for them. That has to start in January, the planning, so everything's set up on time. Because we'd like to be all set up by the 1st of March with what we want to do. And so the seeds can be counted and put in order and ready to go when spring breaks loose in April.
Well, I can tell you that all of this is super exciting to me. Is a lot of the people that I speak with on a regular basis are asking a whole bunch of questions about how things are playing with cover crops. Can we mess with the maturity a little bit of the hybrid to extend, one way or another, what the cover crop can do, and what that cover crop is essentially there for. I guess it depends on what the farmer is using it for. Um, but yeah, I think we're going to get a lot of really good information gathered from the Discovery Farm, and I'm really excited to see it, from now moving forward into, basically this time next year, so we get a full year of knowledge from that place.
Yeah, and so to directly to your questions and concerns from your customers is that we will be selecting varieties under these various conditions so we can actually answer those questions with firsthand knowledge, and that's really the driver as to why. Because we need to know, and I'm really curious as well. And we've got a lot of trends that we've seen with our genetics for the regenerative ag, where they're very receptive to biology. And I was just going over some data yesterday that says that we hurt some of our hybrids by applying too much nitrogen. That is crazy. I've never, I mean, when you do this research work, you have a wide, let's say, margin of error or variation in the field sometimes. And this year was probably worse than most because of the weather systems that we had. But I can see with one particular hybrid, or let's say inbred female parent, because it doesn't cross a couple different hybrid combinations, where it increases yield with less nitrogen. And that's really got me curious. And these are going to remain nameless here until I get some more information behind me. But it's really exciting stuff from a research standpoint that uh, it's working where you can increase yield with less nitrogen. I had not heard anyone with that trend yet out talking in the public. And it's doing across multiple backgrounds. But what's even more intriguing is that with our breeding program, you're always developing the next generation of materials from the previous generation. And this trait is heritable to the next generation. So it's being passed on to the next generation of inbreds from the founder parent, let's say. And so that's even cool, really cool. I mean
Yes.
that you discover you can bring it on, and then and like I said, I got to keep tearing apart data. That's what we're going to do all winter is keep tearing apart this data we collected this last year until we plant again next spring, and then we'll be focused on the new year. Because that'll help us formulate what kind of experiments that we put in.
Right.
And so I really want to try and understand this, how heritable this trait is, how effective it is. So he's doing some like rated nitrogen application, but then you mix in the cover crop mixes, what they can do. And I mean, the number is infinite of what we can do for combinations. So we have to try and pick through the best
Right.
combinations. And so if there's people out there listening to us today, maybe they can send you some type of comment as to what's worked best for them, uh, combinations for raising corn.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
I mean, I'm all ears. I mean, I'm a newbie at this. I want to learn as much as we can and then take the best ideas and plant them and practice them, or just to see what happens.
Yeah, and in conversations I've had, it can be even just what what the rate of a particular portion of a cover crop blend is on what they're looking for as the end result, whether it was for forage that they were going to be running some animals on afterward, and they wanted to make sure that there was going to be some good value for that, or if it was more for erosion control or increasing infiltration or weed control, where guys are playing with how many pounds of vetch are in there compared to some of the other things, on finding where it's if it's doing the job that it was supposed to do, and if they can tweak it a little bit. So some of that stuff we can get a lot of good information from customers of ours or other guys that are operating within a system like this. So yeah, if anyone is out there and has some ideas or what worked for them or what didn't work for them, please let us know. Drop a comment down below, and we'll take it and run with it.
Yeah, and I should say that, that's our Discovery Farm up in Minnesota, but I'm turning our Puerto Rico farm into Discovery Farm here now too with cover crops and how we manage because we have such high insect pressure. And I purchased a no-till drill for Puerto Rico here last spring, got it sent down. We planted some cover crops this spring, and I picked the absolute wrong cover crops for the tropics. And I'll be sending some pictures. I'm not too proud to show that I messed up, but as we do this video series and you'll see results from what's happening on our farm down here in Puerto Rico as well, because you know, even though it's the tropics, we can still learn what the interactions are on the crops. The biology is still similar. The climate's just harsher, and so it's a little bit more forgiving up in the Midwest most of the time than it is here. And things happen so fast here. We can like for our inbred development, we grow three and a half crops a year down here, so we can really crank out new products faster than we understand what they can do. And but I mean that's part of the process to keep up with getting the latest, greatest materials out for our customers.
So
So
we've like you said, the season down there for planting was similar to what it is here. So it's led to some challenges with what the field is looking like. And you had shared a video recently of some drone activity going down at the farm in Puerto Rico. You want to explain that a little bit or talk about it?
sure, sure. So we started talking about implementing a drone for helping us with our pesticide applications. Now, just to refresh people who may not have heard that are listening to us first time, is that in Puerto Rico, when we grow a temperate crop down here, which would be what we grow in the Midwest, we can grow it in between 90 and 100 days, which up in the Midwest will take whatever the length of the growing season is, which is normally in the 150 to 160 day time frame to grow a crop. So we're doing that in 90 to 100 here. And so everything's compressed. And I have to spray for insects. I budget 21 times during that 90 days. And that's what's budgeted, and based on our scouting reports, we may increase or decrease it. Generally, it gets increased because we found over the 19 years we've been doing this that 21 is kind of the magic number to budget. It doesn't come up less than that very often and generally increases. So, and because we're on an island, you have to bring in your supplies ahead of time and have inventory. And so that's where we feel most comfortable at for our crop planning each year. And so last year we had a wet year and got behind again, like we did, or like we are this year. So it's our second year, actually third year in a row of this now. And where we couldn't spray like we wanted to, and we thought, we got to go drone, we got to do something. And so we started doing that this year, and initial results are it's working and quite effectively. And it might actually be even more efficient than what we're doing with our ground rigs. And we'll know more about that. And we can post some videos of that for people who are interested to see. So, we're really caught in a transition phase with our businesses of total chemistry mindset and then moving to regenerative agriculture. And I'm willing to document everything on this so people can learn from our mistakes, and when we find things that work, they can implement them on their farms too, because it's all a learning process. And that's how we call it the discovery farm. We're going to figure out or discover what we do right and what we do wrong, and make that information available to interested people, especially our customers.
So I guess the next steps then for the Discovery Farm will be I'll get through the winter, get into spring, and then what is your plan for planting into it?
Well, in Minnesota, of course, will, as I alluded to earlier, we'll be planting our standard hybrid development plots into the different management practices. So we'll have it going into cover crops, we'll have it going into corn on corn, we'll have it to going in corn on soybeans. So we're going to get three different looks at the genetics on the same farm with different management practices. And of course, this is all going to be no-till this year. We decided just to eliminate tillage because the long-term goal is to be regenerative, and we may switch to strip till going forward, but right now we're going to be set up to go no-till. With our research work that we've done since 2013 out of Olivia, Minnesota for our contract research group and hybrid development, we've planted on strip till, no-till, conventional till all this time. And I've gotten quite partial to no-till. Yes, it has some challenges, but at the same time, when I look at cost per acre plus return, I think that's where the most margin is for us to grab on our farm. And so that's why I'm going that way. Why buy all this extra equipment and wear it out if we don't have to? I'd rather have a good planter and keep that in tip-top shape, and a good combine to harvest everything, and shred some stocks if we need to, or however we want to manage that. But that's it. Why wear out a tractor and
Right.
and tillage equipment if we don't have to?
So if we're going to be planting, when are we going to be looking at the different methods and how guys plant into cover crop, whether they're planting in green or they're gonna get a burn down method going in previous to planting, or how what are your thoughts on that side of things? Planting green or something with like a crimper or anything like that.
Well, being a newbie and probably a bit aggressive, uh, we're probably going to plant green. That's the way I want to do, because my long-term goal for this is to eliminate synthetic inputs and see what that path looks like. So that's anything for herbicides, for weeds, it's synthetic fertilizers, nutrition, everything. I want it to be more natural, through nature. And so planting green, that means we have to look at a different way to terminate the cover crops that we'd be planting into. But I really like the idea of keeping the ground covered and just open it up to plant and reduce where the weeds are. And I've seen that. We've done no-till the last 2 years for our research nursery. One year I had pretty good luck. When we first started last year, I had terrible luck, but I didn't have the stand I wanted on my cover crop because I was using a winter killed cover crop of wheat and barley, and I just didn't get enough growth before freeze up. We're in danger of that same thing this year again because the dry weather, we didn't have enough moisture to grow it. So I'm not 100% sure how I'm gonna handle the no-till this spring for our nursery yet. I got time to think about that. It's planted, it started to grow, but it's not going to be enough to create the mat I had 2 years ago to prevent weed growth. Because I had like the cleanest nursery I've ever had. And if you've dealt with inbred growth. I mean, it's not like hybrids, they grow about half the size. And so you don't get the shading that you rely on late in the season. So you can have late season weed growth in seed fields and nurseries. So we got an extra challenge versus a standard farm, production on a farm. Because you get the shading effect on the hybrids that the farmers
Right.
plant versus us. So those are some of the challenges I got to figure out and what the answer is. Been, talking to farmers, our customers that show me some cool equipment where, for crimping in between the rows and what kind of success they've had or haven't had. And so, so we might plant it and then crimp it. We might crimp it before we plant. There's all kinds of things to be decided yet.
I guess
So
that's another thing that if anybody is listening or watching and they can, put anything down there that they've had success with, or once again, or maybe they didn't have success with it, and can put some information on it for us that way, because we're all ears and eyes here, just trying to learn as much as we possibly can, so we can have more informed discussions with everybody about what's going on in the relationship between.
yeah, I certainly do not want to have 150 acres of failure either. I want
Correct,
to
right,
take the best practices from people that have had some experience and put
right.
it in. And, we're gleaning through that and we're willing to take the risk, just to dive in, head first. So,
Well,
and
I look forward to it. I'll actually be I'll see the Discovery Farm tomorrow, and I'll take some pictures of it and some video, and I'm excited to see where it's at because I know there was some concern for when you were out there when you planted when you drilled the cover crop into there, it was fairly dry, right?
yeah, it needed moisture to come up. And so I seeded on October 16th, which is late to begin with from Minnesota. And then it was dry, but we were fortunate enough to get about a quarter inch of rain about 3 days after I planted it. And so it did start to germinate and come up. And so, but we didn't have a killing frost. I think right now they're having snow in Minnesota. So we're finally getting that cold, maybe killing weather. When I last looked at it a week ago before I came down to Puerto Rico, it was up and starting to get established. Now we won't have the top growth that I was looking for over winter, but I'm sure we're going to, get some regrowth in the spring and I'll be relying on you and Travis from the Danube office there, maybe to get a look at how the root mass looks on the cover crop at this point to see if we've got the roots established. Because one thing I understand with cereal rye is you're going to have a lot more root mass underneath than you have vegetation on top. And so that'd be kind of fun if you can take some photos of that and share it with us here in another week or so after you get that done.
Sure.
So, and that way, it's like I say, we're all learning, but I think we're going to be able to hold the soil in place. That's good.
Yeah, at a bare minimum, right? We got some roots in the ground on that field, so that's super important, and hopefully, we get some good moisture through the winter, and we have a good jump start to the season next year with all the things that are going into that the Discovery Farm.
Yeah, and we'll have soil tests then, so we'll know where we're at for fertility and ideally what we have for soil microbes at this point in time, so that we can get some soil samples taken this fall yet. And then we'll do it again during the growing season a couple different times to see what we have. We alluded to when we started this conversation of how we were going to manage it and like manage fertility. Well, this last spring with all the moisture that we had, when we do our plot work, a lot of farms will put on fall applied nitrogen, to meet maybe 80% of their needs and come back and side dress the next spring. Well, we went and tested fields before we go in because we want to do nutritional work. And if they had down 200 pounds of nitrogen, went out and tested, yeah, there was still like 180 pounds of nitrogen there available for the crop. That all looks good in March. And then we had all the rains that we had. We came back and soil tested again because the crop wasn't looking like it should. And we thought with the rains, we might have been leaching some nitrogen. We wanted to make sure that to help our tests be accurate, we took the tests again and we were probably only 20 pounds of nitrogen left. So where did that 160 pounds of nitrogen go? Well, actually, a total 180 if you start out with 200
Right.
available, and then now we're down to 20 when you get to June, mid-June. where did it go? And my best guess is through the tile line, or it's a lot deeper in the soil profile than what we tested, because we only tested, pulled cores 24 inches deep.
Right.
And then I like to test the top half where the soil, the top soil's at, and then when you get to the B horizon, that's like two different samples then when you pull a core
Right.
to make sure, because your topsoil is going to vary due to the years we've had erosion. And so, the plants work in both horizons, but both horizons give you different results for soil tests. And you can't just say, well, I'm going to take a 6-inch sample. No, I want to take A horizon sample and a B horizon
Right.
test. I should,
Right.
sample them that way. And so that way you're more accurate as you go across the field. At least that's my theory and experience for looking at soil tests. And so, but anyway, it surprised our cooperators, and we told them how much nitrogen was lost from what they applied to where we were this spring. And I mean, that was totally mind blowing. And there was a lot of variable results in our Renville County area this year, and elsewhere in the Midwest, due to the heavy rainfall, and how much of it was us counting on nitrogen that was no longer available. We also had drought at the end of the year, so that doesn't help either. But there's so many factors to think through, and trying to understand how the season went. And that's why, for me personally, it's taken a long time to understand the data that we have. You keep looking at it and you think about it from a different perspective each time you look at the data, and then come up with some different ideas on the results and why they are what they are. So, but anyway, that's a long-winded answer to trying to get a baseline for our farm and then checking it off, and so we know exactly what happened to it through the growing season.
Right. Well, like I said before, I mean the main point is the information. We'll get a ton of information. We'll have a better story to tell on a bunch of different lines about what's going on out there, and be able to have a different interaction with people that are out there that are operating this way, or that might want to step into farming this way, to have a encyclopedia, if you will, of information that we can help them or assist them, and vice versa. They can help us. Oh, I'm really
Yeah,
looking forward to it.
yeah, and that's exciting, because we're going to keep track of all the costs too when we do this on these different areas. We can kind of lay that out, because our intention is to have at least one field day, if not two, out at the Discovery Farm for people to come in and see what we've done, and we'll kind of lay it up on some big boards what we spent. Everyone can put in what their own land rent costs in, but we'll definitely put out, okay, this is what our equipment costs, this is what our trips over the field costs us,
Right.
our fuel, our synthetic input, anything that we purchase, what's our soil sampling cost us, to understand what we have, and we're gonna have that on the board. And then so that we can compare that to, or everybody can compare that to what their own costs are
Right.
with the way they're currently farming. And I think that's huge, because it all comes down to the bottom line, what's our return on our investment on how we farm, and what we choose to invest in each location or each situation.
Right.
And,
Well,
and
I,
so
I look forward to seeing it, and especially what you were talking about before with doing some skip rows and some interseeding with other things during the season, and then just the different applications of what we're doing for inputs in terms of minimal inputs as opposed to some other methods. So I look forward to it, and I think it'll be a great success for us.
and I'm glad you mentioned the skip row again, because that just reminded me is that, we develop corn genetics and we sell them all over the globe, not just through the Bass hybrids in the
Right.
Midwest. And so where I've really gotten intrigued with regenerative farming, not only from Brian and Keith Burns at Green Cover, but also with our Kazakhstan connection. His name is Armen, and he runs a dairy farm. And he basically is regenerated his soil where his dairy farm is at. And he uses basically 100% of our hybrids now, because they respond to biology. He's done a lot of skip row work with success. And I had a phone call with him about 2 weeks ago, and he was telling me that his his corn planted in skip rows, two at the equivalent of 30 inches apart. Then you skip 60 inches and do two rows again. And then he plants covers between every row. And he didn't raise the population to be the equivalent. He works in hectares, but let's say to be the equivalent of, let's say, 32,000 plants an acre here in the US. He did not change his planter setting by removing one row. And his yield went up 16%, removing the one row and not changing the population. That was mind-blowing to me. But
Yes.
the hybrid that he used, or the hybrids that he used, really flex. So they put on two full-size ears. He did another hybrid as well that it flexed on the one ear, but not the two ears, and it couldn't keep up. The yield was maybe similar to a little bit less when you had all the plants in there. So he was even surprised at that. But the idea that he increased his yield by skipping a row, I've never heard that before. And so one of the things I'd like to do with this podcast is we bring our men on as well
I'd love to talk to
and
him.
talk
Yes.
about his experience. And, everyone says, well, it's different on my farm. I've been all over the world. Everyone says it's different on my farm. In reality, it's not that much different. There are some idiosyncrasies that you
Right.
have to deal with, or you have to localize practices. But in general, we can learn from everybody all over the globe what's going on, because something they do will be similar to what happens on my farm. And, so I don't care if we're in the tropics, we're in the temperate zone, we're in the Midwest in the US, we're in Kazakhstan, South America, anybody, anywhere we can connect with other farmers doing this work, I think we're going to learn something from each other. And
Absolutely.
so that's part of what I really want to do, is bring in a global aspect to this discussion here as we go through this over the winter and keep discussing about Discovery Farm and what we're thinking, what we're doing, and as we apply some of the findings that we have.
Well, I figure we can circle around again on the Discovery Farm when we get to about to plant date, and kind of get a recap of what we experienced up through that point, what it looked like in the springtime before we planted, and then how we planted it. So that'll be uh, the next episode for the Discovery Farm. Yeah.
Well, I think we may throw some in from down here though, Andrew.
Okay.
I
Yeah.
think
Sure.
it
Oh yeah. Of course. Yep.
work down here in the tropics, and like I said, I'll be taking some video of my failure here over the next couple days, so we can get these out and posted, and some commentary here, for people to look at and offer suggestions. I think maybe we'll try and do this, on a monthly basis a
Sure.
little bit to just keep things rolling, and more frequently if we have more information coming together, if that works
Yeah.
for you.
Yeah. No, I like that. That's a great idea. And then maybe it'll be a reason for me to come down to Puerto Rico and work on the
Well, we
farm,
certainly
work on
have
the
to
farm
have
for a
one
few
on,
days.
a short discussion at least. So,
Yeah.
but
Um,
yeah, that's the other thing is people who, we've always had our farm open here in Puerto Rico for people who want to come down and look at agriculture in the off season to see what goes on for research work for hybrid development. And I can't tell you over the years how many farmers have told me, they said, I have no idea this much work goes into developing a hybrid that I plant, and
right.
how much time it takes to do it. And it's not, it's what we do, and we like to share that so people have an understanding.
Right.
And because it takes us about 10 generations to develop a brand new inbred. Hybrid testing is probably anywhere from 4 to 6 years
Right.
as well before you have a product. And you look at how different the years are. And like this last year was one, you have products that work well for, every year you've seen them in existence, from the testing and including the commercial time. And then they did something completely unexpected this season. And I've had farmers tell me, he goes, I'm tired of you guys telling me that you've never seen it before. Well, it's true. And we look at a lot of corn in a lot of conditions.
Right.
And I don't make that statement lightly.
Right.
Uh, so we really do try and understand it. And as other guys that get gray hair, I think we know we have way more questions than answers, because something always continues to spur on more questions. Well, why is this? I know when I was younger, I had a lot of absolutes in my mind. There's not so many absolutes anymore. and they have to go through all the variations. So when someone asks me, "Oh, why did it do this?" and I kind of stop and have to think, so I think I'm, got a dumbfounded look or like a deer lost in the headlights or something. But there's so many things that we've seen over time, especially working here in the tropics, growing 3.5 crop seasons a year. You got to think through to give a proper answer,
Right.
to why we think what might have happened versus when I was much younger and fresh out of school, it was real quick to give an answer because the library wasn't as full of information.
I
So
think, Ed, the only absolute is that there are no absolutes, right?
pretty much,
Yeah.
and now, really when we go down this discovery farm path with adding soil biology, there's so little we know about the interaction between soil biology and plants, and it just brings a whole new set of questions.
Absolutely.
And so it's like being a little kid again in a brand new toy box, trying to figure everything out.
Oh, for me, it's fun learning all of this stuff, and just trying to consume as much as I possibly can on a regular basis. So, that's one thing is to kind of have our hands in some of that. The discovery of it at the Discovery Farm will be really really intriguing to me. Oh,
You
so yeah, we'll come back around and we'll talk a little bit about Puerto Rico and what you'll have going on there in about a month or so, and the you know Discovery Puerto Rico, if you will, and
exactly,
yeah. So I
exactly.
look forward
I'm
to it.
looking forward to
And Ed, thanks for the time. I appreciate it, and I'll hit stop record here, but don't go away.
All right, thanks. Take care, Andrew. Appreciate it.